Galaxy.
All right, and for this section right here, I'm just showing you this little clip because just because of the Gen 5 SSD that I placed inside of the PlayStation 5, it may seem like it's running actually slower than what it's supposed to be running. And again, we don't have no actual real data to compare the differences in load speeds between a Gen 4 actual and the Gen 5 SSD that I'm using currently right now. So again, he's gonna say it or explain it a lot better than how I can explain to you because again, what we're seeing from the 33, whatever it was at the time, from when it formatted the read speeds, it's not accurate or whatever. I don't know if it's something to do with the PlayStation's the reading speeds, but I'll just let him explain. So here we go.
Improving performance. Instead, in PCs, this drive uses something known as the host memory buffer, meaning that memory within the PC itself is used as a buffer instead. Sony doesn't use HMB and actually specifically advises that drives that do may have slower than expected performance, but we're going to be trying it anyway. The SN850, meanwhile, is one of the best PCIe Gen 4 SSDs on the market. It does have onboard cache and is rated for 7,000 megabytes per second sequential reads. So nigh on 2.2 times multiplier in sequential read bandwidth compared to the SN750 SE. And it's up there as one of the most performant drives on the market, as you'd expect if Mark Cerny is using it in his own ps5, right? So first things first, despite its stated specs, the ps5's bandwidth tester is actually inaccurate and needs to be sorted out. It underestimates the SN850's performance with this circa 6,543 megabyte per second read speed measurement. I mean, no big deal perhaps, we're still safely within
And that is the cap that we always get with the PlayStation 5. Any SSD that goes in the PlayStation 5 Gen 4, those are going to be the read speeds. I don't know why, even though the SSD is rated higher, but maybe, again, like what he said, it's probably inaccurate for whatever reason.
But maybe the PS5's interface is slightly constricted or some such. However, when you plug in the much slower SN750 SE, the read speed test comes in at around 5,174 megabytes per second. It's basically saying that the drive is almost 62% faster than it actually is. Now look, I'm going to cut to the chase here because fundamentally I've set the scene and you want to see this potential dumpster fire of an SSD in action, right? The SN750 SE is a cheap and cheerful SSD that is pretty good for its price point on PC. I mean, this 250 gig model here is important to note that storage on the next generation of machines isn't just about the solid state drive itself, but also the dedicated hardware decompression tech that works alongside it. This effectively doubles the bandwidth of the drive and is just as essential to the PlayStation 5 as the SSD itself. Now, I'm sure some will be saying that Ratchet & Clank isn't tapping into the full potential of the SSD, and I think the point is we can't really forget that it is a first-generation PlayStation 5 game. We shouldn't expect to be seeing developers wringing every last bit of potential out of the hardware. It's still very early days.
And to hold it on that note, fast forward, look at Spider-Man 2. Went from 31 miles per hour. First we seen loading times. That cut down from 10-11 seconds to 8 milliseconds or whatever it was. Spider-Man 2 now went from, the old Spider-Man went from web slinging from 31 miles per hour to 72. So now just think of that, guys. Gen 5 versus the 4. Where is the speeds going to go from there? Is it going to be like 90 something after that? 80? In the hundreds? You get what I'm saying? Well, let's continue real quick.
The SN750 SE seems to have genuine slowdown.
And that's when optimize
issues in copying games across in some scenarios, but otherwise its loading performance in-game seems to be comparable, to a degree that I also found surprising. But I am disappointed that Sony's built-in benchmark is so inaccurate. It suggests that the drive is close to spec, but really it isn't. And while I'm not hugely worried about the games of today, which seem to run fine, I would worry about performance on more demanding titles going forward. I honestly think some kind of super storage heavy tech demo should be released to give these drives a proper workout, or at the very least, to have the console properly benchmark the SSD after formatting, and to do so accurately. That would be useful, right? Okay, so I hope you enjoyed this one, meaning it's...
And that covers that part. Just wanted to put that out there. And we'll continue with the video.